The notification sound cut through the airport noise like a knife. I looked down at my phone, standing there in the middle of Terminal B with my carry-on at my feet, and read the words that would change everything. Your flight has been cancelled. Please contact the airline for rebooking. My hands went cold. I just spent 48 hours at a medical conference in Barcelona, running on 3 hours of sleep and airport coffee. My body ached. My feet hurt. All I wanted was to collapse into my own bed back in Manchester. I pulled up the airline app, fingers shaking slightly as I navigated to my booking. Cancelled by passenger request. I didn't request anything. That's when the text came through. From my mother. 3 words that made my stomach drop. Have fun walking home, loser. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me where you're listening from. Because what I'm about to share isn't just about a cancelled flight. It's about the moment I finally stopped being the family punching bag and became someone my mother wishes she'd never underestimated. My name is Bethany Ray, and I'm a clinical psychologist specializing in family trauma. The irony isn't lost on me. I spend my days helping people set boundaries with toxic relatives while I spent years letting my own mother walk all over me. I grew up in a small town outside Manchester where everyone knew everyone's business. My mother, Beatrice, ran the local hair salon. Not owned, ran. She managed it for the actual owner, but she told everyone she was the boss. Image mattered more than truth in our house. My older brother David was the best child. Football star, charming, the kind of son who could do no wrong even when he was doing everything wrong. He dropped out of university twice, crashed 3 cars, and somehow every failure was spun into a story about his free spirit and potential. Then there was me. The serious one and the boring one. The one who actually finished university, got a doctorate and built a career. But none of that mattered because I didn't give my mother the one thing she valued most. Bragging rights she could flaunt. David worked in car sales. He made decent money, drove a flashy BMW he couldn't actually afford, and took my mother to expensive brunches where she could post photos and talk about her successful son. I worked in private practice, helped trauma survivors rebuild their lives, and lived in a modest flat because I was saving for something bigger. To my mother, I was disappointed. It started small. Little comments at family dinners. Bethany, you're still renting? At your age. Or, David just got promoted again. When are you going to do something impressive? I'd smile. I'd change the subject. I'd swallow the hurt because confronting her meant drama, and I was raised to keep the peace. The comments got sharper over time. At my cousin's wedding, she introduced David as my successful son, and me as my other child. When I bought a car, a sensible used Honda, she laughed. Couldn't afford something nicer? I didn't tell her I could. I didn't tell her about the investment property I'd bought 3 years earlier, the one I was renting out while saving for a second. I didn't tell her about my private practice bringing in more than David made in a year. Because in my family, success that wasn't performed didn't exist. The real breaking point started 6 months before that airport. My mother called me on a Tuesday evening. I was between clients eating a sad desk salad when her name flashed on my screen. Bethany, I need a favor. Not hello or how you are. Just a need. What is it, Mum? David is in a bit of trouble. He owes some money and his credit's maxed out. Can you lend him £5,000? I stopped chewing. £5,000. What does he need it for? Does it matter? He's family and family helps family. I wanted to say no. Every part of me screamed to say no. But that old train response kicked in. The people-pleasing daughter who never wanted to be the bad guy. I'll transfer 3,000. That's what I can spare right now. Silence. Then cold as ice. 3,000. Right. Well, I suppose that's all we can expect from you. She hung up. I transferred the money that night. David never said thank you. My mother never acknowledged it. And 2 weeks later, I saw David's Instagram post from Ibiza, bottle service at a beach club, the whole scene. That £3,000 was my holiday fund. The trip I'd been planning for a year. But I said nothing. The medical conference in Barcelona was important. I was speaking on a panel about intergenerational trauma, a topic I knew uncomfortably well. I'd paid for the trip myself, booked everything carefully because my schedule was tight. The conference went well. My panel was well received. I even got approached by a hospital administrator about consulting work. I should have felt proud. Instead, I felt exhausted and drained. Like I was running on fumes. I called my mother from the hotel the night before my flight. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to share something good, or maybe I was still hoping for a crumb of approval. Mom, the conference went really well. I might have a consulting opportunity. That's nice, dear. Listen, David's visiting this weekend. We're having a family dinner. You should come. I'll be exhausted from traveling, but I'll try. Well, don't put yourself out. Her tone had that edge. David's bringing his new girlfriend. It would be nice to have the whole family there, but I understand if you're too busy. The guilt trip was so automatic I almost missed it. I'll be there, I said. Wonderful. Oh, and Bethany? Can you pick up a dessert on your way? Something nice, not a supermarket. I hung up feeling smaller than when I'd called. The next morning I got to the airport 3 hours early. I'm one of those people who panics about missing flights. I checked in online, confirmed my seat, triple-checked my boarding pass. Everything was fine. Until I got to the gate. The board showed my flight. On time. Boarding in 40 minutes. I settled into a chair, pulled out my phone to catch up on emails. That's when the notification came through. Flight cancelled. My heart jumped. I refreshed the app. It had to be a mistake or some glitch. Cancelled by passenger request. No, I didn't cancel anything. I rushed to the desk. The gate agent looked up, already tired even though it was barely noon. Excuse me, my flight was just cancelled, but I didn't. Name. Bethany Ray. She typed, frowned. Yes, it shows here the ticket was cancelled about an hour ago. Voluntary cancellation. No refund. But I didn't cancel it. I'm right here. I need to get on that flight. I understand, but the system shows the cancellation came from the phone number on file. If it wasn't you, you'll need to contact customer service for fraud investigation. How long will that take? Could be several days. Several days. I had clients Monday morning. I had a life to get back to. Can I just buy a new ticket? The flight sold out. Next available is Thursday. Thursday. 3 days away. My phone was still in my hand. That's when it buzzed. Mom, have fun walking home, loser. The airport noise faded. Everything went quiet and sharp at the same time. She cancelled my flight. My own mother cancelled my flight and called me a loser. I stood there, people rushing past me, and something inside me didn't break. It crystallized. Every dismissed achievement, every comparison to David, every time I'd swallowed my hurt to keep the peace, it all compressed into one clear, cold thought. Enough. I called her. She answered on the third ring, and I could hear the smile in her voice. Did you get my message? Why did you cancel my flight? Oh, don't be so dramatic. It's just a joke. David thought it would be funny. You're always so serious, Bethany, lighten up. David thought it would be funny. Yes. We were having lunch and I mentioned you were coming back today, and he said, wouldn't it be hilarious if she got stranded? So I logged into your email. You really should change your passwords, dear, and canceled it. It's just a laugh. Just a laugh. I was stranded in a foreign country, potentially missing work, and it was just a laugh. You broke into my email and sabotaged my travel as a joke. Oh, stop. You'll figure it out. You always do. That's your problem, Bethany. You're too capable for your own good. Makes you bored. Something in her voice. Pride. She was proud of what they just did. I have to go, I said. See you Thursday for dinner then. Don't forget the dessert. She hung up. I stood there in Barcelona airport holding a phone that felt like a weapon, and I made a decision. My mother wanted to play games. She wanted to remind me I was nothing and I was the backup child, the boring one, the one who existed to serve and never complain. She had no idea what I actually owned. And she was about to find out. I didn't panic. That's the thing about being underestimated your whole life. You learn to be calm in chaos because no one's coming to save you. I found a quiet corner of the airport, pulled out my laptop and opened my banking app. Then I opened the property management file. Then I opened the document I'd been working on for 3 months, the one I hadn't told anyone about. 3 years ago I bought my first investment property. A small 2-bedroom terrace in a decent area, nothing fancy. I rented it out, saved the income, and bought another one 18 months later. Then another 6 months after that. I lived below my means while my portfolio grew. While David bragged about his BMW payments, I was building equity. While my mother showed off brunch photos, I was meeting with estate agents and mortgage brokers. I own 4 properties now. One of them was a 3-bedroom semi-detached in the neighborhood where I grew up. The house directly next to my mother's. He didn't know. She had no idea her boring, unsuccessful daughter owned the property next door. The one she'd complained about for months because the previous tenant was a nightmare, loud music, trash everywhere, and the police called twice. That tenant's lease ended last month. The property was empty. And I'd been planning to renovate it, turn it into a proper rental. But sitting there in that airport reading that text over and over, "Have fun walking home, loser," something shifted. I didn't want to renovate. I wanted revenge. I booked a hotel room in Barcelona for 3 nights. Not a budget place. A nice one. If I was going to be stranded, I'd be comfortable. Then I made a call. Javier. It's Bethany Ray. I need a favor. Javier Moreno was a contractor I'd worked with before. Reliable, discreet, and most importantly, he didn't ask questions. What do you need? That property on Ashford Road. The one next to my mother's house. The empty one? Yes. I need it occupied by Monday. Pause. Occupied. I'm going to move in. You're moving in? I thought you liked your flat. Change of plans. Can you get it minimally livable by Monday? Furniture, utilities, and the basics. That's 4 days. I'll pay extra. Another pause. How much extra? Double your usual rate. I'll make it happen. Javier. One more thing. Don't tell anyone who owns the property. If anyone asks, say you're working for an overseas investor. He laughed. Bethany, you're scaring me. What are you planning? Something long overdue. I spent 3 days in Barcelona pretending to be a tourist. I walked through the Gothic quarter, ate at expensive restaurants, and bought clothes I didn't need. Every purchase felt like rebellion. I posted nothing on social media. Let them wonder. My mother called twice. I didn't answer. David sent a text. Mom says you're being dramatic. It was just a joke. I deleted it. Thursday morning I flew home. Not to Manchester. I booked a flight to London, then took a train. The long, expensive way. I arrived in Manchester Thursday evening and went straight to Ashford Road. Javier met me outside. The house looked different already. Cleaned up, lights on, curtains in the windows. It's basic but livable, he said, handing me keys. Furniture arrives tomorrow. Utilities are on. I even got your internet installed. You're a miracle worker. I'm expensive is what I am. He grinned. Seriously though, Bethany. Your mother lives right there. He gestured next door. Are you sure about this? I looked at my childhood home. The house where I was never quite good enough. Where David got the bigger bedroom and the louder praise. Where every achievement I earned was met with a shrug. I'm sure. I didn't tell my mother I was next door. I moved on Friday night, quietly, like a ghost returning to haunt. Saturday morning, I woke up to the sound of my mother's voice through the wall. Beatrice, you won't believe who I saw at the salon. The walls were thin. I could hear almost everything. I made coffee and listened to my mother gossip with a friend about someone's failed marriage, someone's weight gain, someone's disappointing children. She laughed, that sharp cackle she had, the one that always made my shoulders tense. I sipped my coffee and smiled. Phase 1 was simple. Exist. Be present and be mysterious. I spent the weekend setting up. Minimal furniture, mostly second-hand pieces that looked deliberately cheap. I wanted the house to look like someone struggling lived there. Someone who didn't have it together. Someone my mother would judge. Monday morning she saw me. I was carrying in a box from my car when she stepped onto her porch. Bethany. I turned, playing surprised. Hi, Mom. She stared. What are you doing here? I live here now. Moved on Friday. Live here? Next door. Yes. Since when? Since Friday. I just said that. Her face went through several expressions. Confusion, disbelief, and something else. Calculation. Why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you tell me you were canceling my flight? Direct hit. Her mouth opened and closed. That was just a joke, Bethany. Don't be. I have to unpack, I said, cutting her off. See you around. I went inside and closed the door. Through the window I watched her stand there staring at my house, trying to process. The neighborhood gossip network was faster than social media. By Tuesday everyone knew. Beatrice's daughter, the successful psychologist, had moved into the rundown house next door. Not bought. Moved into. As in renting. My mother's friends started asking questions. I thought Bethany had a good job. Why would she downgrade like that? Is everything okay with her? I know this because my mother called me Tuesday afternoon, her voice tight. Bethany, people are asking about you. Let them ask. They think you're struggling. They think you can't afford a proper place. What do you care about? Silence. Then quietly, almost vulnerably, it reflects on me. There was not a concern for me but concern for her image. I'll try to be less embarrassing, I said and hung up. Phase 2 began Wednesday. I started a routine. Every morning I'd leave for work at odd hours. Sometimes 6 a.m. Sometimes 10 a.m. No pattern. I'd come home late looking tired carrying takeaway food containers. I parked my old Honda on the street instead of the driveway, making sure it was visible and making sure people noticed. I wore old clothes when I was home. Paint-stained joggers, oversized jumpers with holes. I let the bins overflow slightly before taking them out. I played music at night. Not loud enough to complain about but loud enough to hear. Sad and breakup songs. The kind of music someone in crisis plays. My mother watched everything. I'd see her curtains move when I came home. I'd see her in the garden pretending to water plants while really just observing. Her friends started dropping by her house more often. I'd watch them through my window, see them glancing over at my place, whispering. The narrative was writing itself. Bethany, the daughter who was never quite good enough, had finally crashed. She was struggling, maybe financially or maybe emotionally. She'd moved back to the old neighborhood not as a success story, but as a cautionary tale. My mother's validation. Proof that David was the better child after all. 2 weeks in, my mother showed up at my door. I opened it to find her holding a casserole dish, a smile painted on. I thought you might like some home cooking. You look thin. I took the dish. Thanks. Can I come in? It's a mess. I don't mind. I stepped aside. Let her see the deliberately sparse furniture, the unpacked boxes I'd strategically placed, the general air of someone barely holding it together. She looked around and I saw it in her eyes. Satisfaction. Bethany, if you're having money troubles, I'm fine. Because you can always ask for help. Family helps family. The irony of that statement coming from her after she left me stranded in Spain. I'm managing. She sat on my second-hand sofa without being invited. Your brother is doing so well. He just got another promotion. I was thinking maybe he could help you get a job at the dealership. Something stable. Something stable. As if my doctorate and private practice weren't stable. I have a job. I mean a real job, Bethany. Something with security. I smiled. Calm and cold. I appreciate the offer but I'm fine. She left 20 minutes later and I knew she went straight home to call someone. To share her concern and spread the story of her struggling daughter. Perfect. 4 weeks into living next door, my mother threw a party. Not just any party. A garden party to celebrate David's big promotion. She invited everyone. Family, friends and neighbors, the entire social circle she'd spent years cultivating. She told me about it exactly 3 days ago. Bethany, we're having a celebration Saturday. For David. You should come. I'll think about it. It would mean a lot to him and to me. I'll let you know. She didn't say it but I heard the subtext. Show up so people can see both her children. The successful one and the struggling one. The comparison she'd been building to her entire life. I told her I'd be there. Then I made some calls. Saturday arrived. Warm, sunny, perfect for a garden party. I watched from my window as guests arrived. David pulled up in his BMW, his new girlfriend beside him, both looking like they'd stepped out of an Instagram ad. My mother wore her best dress, playing hostess, all smiles and charm. I waited until the party was in full swing. Until everyone was there. Then I got ready. I didn't wear paint-stained joggers. I wore a tailored dress I'd bought in Barcelona. Expensive and elegant, the kind of thing that made a statement. I did my hair. Put on real makeup. Wore the jewelry I'd kept hidden for weeks. Then I walked out my front door. My mother saw me first. Her face froze mid-laugh. I walked through the side gate into her garden. Heads turned. Sorry I'm late, I said smiling. Work ran long. My Aunt Teresa grabbed my arm. Bethany dear, we heard you were going through a hard time. Are you all right? Going through a hard time? Your mother said you'd been struggling. That you'd have to move back to the neighborhood. I looked at my mother. She was pale. Struggling? Oh. I bought the house next door as an investment property 3 years ago. I've been renovating it. I decided to live there for a bit to oversee the work. Silence. Teresa blinked. You bought it? Yes. Along with 3 others. I have a small property portfolio. Rental income mostly, but I'm considering selling 1 or 2. The market's good right now. You could hear a pin drop. David stepped forward, confused. Wait, you own property? Multiple properties. Yes. The one next door just happened to be available when I needed a place to stay after someone. I looked directly at my mother, sabotaged my travel plans, and I decided I was done maintaining relationships with people who treat me like garbage. My mother's friend, Carmen, looked between us. Beatriz, you said Bethany was renting because she couldn't afford anything else. I didn't know, my mother stammered. You didn't ask, I corrected. You assumed. You've spent my entire life assuming I was less than David. Less successful. Less impressive and less worth celebrating. Bethany, this isn't the place. No, this is exactly the place. You threw a party to show off one child while pitying the other. But the truth you never bothered to learn is that I'm doing fine. Better than fine. I turned to the crowd. My family. My mother's friends. All the people who'd whispered about me for weeks. I'm a clinical psychologist with a thriving private practice. I own multiple properties. I have savings, investments, and a career I built myself without handouts or bailouts. I've never needed to borrow money, crash cars, or lean on family to get by. I did it alone because I was never given any other option. David's face went red. That's not fair. You borrowed £5,000 from me 6 months ago and spent it in Ibiza. I have the Instagram posts to prove it. So let's not talk about fairness. My mother found her voice. Shaky and desperate. Bethany, why didn't you tell me any of this? Because you never wanted to know. You wanted me to be small so David could be big. You needed me to fail so his mediocrity looked like success. And when I refused to fail on my own, you tried to sabotage me. The flight was a joke. The flight was cruel. You left me stranded in a foreign country and called me a loser. Your daughter. The one who's never asked you for anything. Who paid for Christmas dinner last year while you complained I didn't bring expensive enough wine. Who listened to you brag about David while pretending my achievements didn't exist. Tears started down her face. Real ones, I think, but I was past caring. You want to know why I moved next door? Not because I'm struggling. Because I wanted you to see what you'd created. A daughter who succeeded despite you, not because of you. A daughter who learned to be self-sufficient because depending on you only led to disappointment. I set my glass down on the table. Enjoy your party. Celebrate David's promotion. I genuinely hope it works out for him this time. I walked toward the gate, then stopped and turned back. Oh, and Mum? I'm selling the house next door. Already have a buyer lined up. Young family. 2 kids. They seem lovely. I'm sure you'll enjoy having actual children around to compare David to. I left through the side gate. I walked into my house and closed the door. And for the first time in my entire life I felt free. The silence lasted 3 days. No calls. No texts and nothing from my mother, David, or anyone who'd been at that party. I half expected drama and confrontation or something. Instead I got voicemails. The first was from my Aunt Teresa. Bethany, I had no idea. Your mother told us such a different story. I'm sorry we believed it. You deserve better. The second was from Carmen, my mother's best friend. I've known Beatriz for 20 years and I've never seen her speechless like that. What you said needed saying. Good for you. The third was from David, voice tight. You embarrassed Mum in front of everyone. That was cruel, Bethany. We're supposed to be family. I deleted it without finishing. Family. That word had been used against me for so long. Family means you give. Family means you sacrifice. Family means you stay quiet while others take and take and take. I was done with that definition of family. A week after the party, I saw my mother in her garden. She looked smaller somehow, like the weight of her own lies had finally caught up to her. She saw me through the fence. For a moment, neither of us moved. Then she spoke, voice barely carrying over the distance. I didn't know you were doing so well. You didn't ask. I thought David needed more support. You always seemed so capable. So you punished me for being capable by treating me like I didn't matter? She looked down. I didn't see it that way. I know. That's the problem. She wiped her eyes. Can we fix this? I could have said yes. Could have taken the olive branch and gone back to swallowing hurt for the sake of peace. But I thought about that airport. About standing there, stranded and reading, "Have fun walking home, loser," and feeling like I was drowning. I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know if you're sorry you did it or sorry you got caught. And until you figure that out, there's nothing to fix. I went back inside. 2 months later, I sold the house next door. The family who bought it was exactly what I'd described. Young parents, 2 small kids, a dog. They moved in on a Saturday. I helped them carry boxes and introduced myself as the previous owner. The wife, Isabella, was warm and kind. Your mother next door seems lovely. She brought over biscuits. She can be charming, I said carefully. She mentioned you two had a falling out. Said she hoped you'd reconcile someday. Maybe someday. But I didn't believe it. I kept my flat in the city. Used it as a home office, a quiet space when I needed to escape. I kept my property portfolio, even expanded it by one. I kept my career, my boundaries, and my peace. David and I don't speak. He sent one more text after the party. You've always been jealous. I blocked his number. My mother and I exist in a strange space now. Neighbors but not family. Cordial but not close. He waves when she sees me. I wave back. Sometimes I catch her watching me load groceries into my car, that same calculating look she's always had. I don't know what she's thinking. I don't ask. Because here's what I learned. Some people will only ever see you as a supporting character in their story. And the moment you step into your own narrative, write your own ending, refuse to stay small, they panic. They don't know how to handle a person they can no longer control. My mother spent years underestimating me. He thought I was weak, boring, and forgettable. She thought canceling my flight would be a funny story she could tell at brunch. She had no idea that the boring daughter she dismissed owned the ground she stood on. And by the time she found out, it was too late to take back the damage. I still work in family trauma therapy. I still help people set boundaries with toxic relatives. But now when I sit across from a client who's struggling to stand up to their family, who's afraid of being the bad guy, who keeps swallowing hurt to keep the peace, I understand them in a way I couldn't before. I tell them what I learned the hard way. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop setting yourself on fire to keep others warm. Sometimes the most loving act is walking away. Sometimes revenge isn't about destruction. It's about the truth. About refusing to let someone else's narrative define you. About standing in your own power and saying, "This is who I am." With or without your approval. My mother wanted me to be small. I bought the house next door and proved I was anything but. And that, more than any words I said at that party, is the revenge that will follow her forever. If you've ever been underestimated and looked down on by your own family, if you've ever been the reliable one who got taken for granted, if you've ever had to choose between keeping the peace and keeping your dignity, tell me in the comments. Share your story. You're not alone. And if this story speaks to you, if you felt that anger and satisfaction right along with me, hit that subscribe button and like this video. Because there are more stories like this coming. More moments of justice, more proof that the people who underestimate you often regret it most. Thanks for listening. And remember, being underestimated isn't a weakness. It's an advantage. They'll never see you coming.